Vienna is a big city, but remarkably safe city. Didn't worry much about crime there. And yet we had one of the most searing experiences when it appeared that our oldest son, Davin, it's like 7 years old, had disappeared and had been snatched off the street. Davin was in first grade and in an after-school swim program where he was taken with other students off to a swimming pool, and my wife, Lei Sun, was to come and pick him up about the time practice would be over and bring him home. So I'm at work at my office, and she goes to pick him up, and he's not there. And she calls me from there and said, Davin's not here, or don't know. He was supposed to be waiting for me, and I pick him up, but he's gone. And I said, well, he must have gone home with one of the other families. They brought him, they'll drop him off. Just go home and wait. So she goes home and calling to me every so often, and Davin's, nobody's dropped him off. And I said, well, chances are people who took him with him brought them to their house. They wouldn't know that for sure anybody would be at our house. And so my wife starts calling the different families and parents who are in the swim program. And it takes several hours to go through, and each time the call is the same. Oh no, Davin's not with us. We saw him sitting there when we left. I know he was waiting. And finally, 6:30, 6:45, we've talked to all the families. He's not with any of them. And now the question is, where could he be? What could have happened? No cell phones. I didn't have a car to go home. My wife is, as you can imagine, near panic. And to keep her calm, I said, well, go out and drive around, see if, I didn't think she was going to find him, but see, if you see him any place, just to keep her busy. And I start calling our security officers and saying, our son seems to have disappeared. And I'm looking at his picture sitting there on my desk. And after you've exhausted all of the plausible explanations about what might have happened to him, positive plausible explanations, then have to confront in your mind the plausible, not positive. And did somebody, some pervert, grab him off the street, lure him into a car, and taken him off, as happened often enough in the U.S.? And I remember thanking God that we were in Austria and not in America, because it would be the more likely in America that happened to him, that some terrible person grabbed him. We were trying to call the police, what to do, send out a search for him. What could we do? But there was a moment I looked at the picture and I confronted what was the possible reality, that I would never, ever see my son again. Such a searing, painful moment as any parent could tell you. I didn't feel I could leave the office because my wife was, I had to be with her on the phone. It would take me an hour to get home. And so talking to her trying to convince her, go out again, go out and look. It's now 8 o'clock, 5 hours after she was supposed to pick him up. And she calls me back and said, I went out in the car, and there he was, turning the corner, walking up the street to our house. So I said, before you hug him and then strangle him for whatever's happened, find out what happened. And Davin explained that we had sat down with him once talking about being at school, and if he ever missed the bus, he knew how to walk home from school, which was like a half mile from our house. And when my wife hadn't shown up quite a time and he thought he didn't have a ride, he started walking. But the swimming pool was on the other side of Vienna. And he walked for 5 hours through Vienna, through Türkenschanz Park, sort of the central park of Vienna, all of these routes. Somehow, with the unerring instinct of a homing pigeon, found his way back to our neighborhood and, exhausted, walked up the hill to our house. You can imagine the joy that filled me, as it did my wife, of coming home and hugging our son, having thought I was never, ever going to see him again.